name is really, is somebody new here? No, you have been to the last meeting already. You are new, okay. I'm Karsten. Giesecke and Devrient, we print money and credit cards and stuff, and you can watch the video from the other session. Siri, next. The current situation, we have an old Icinga 1 running with 3,000 host objects and many services, and it was kind of one and a half man show for many years with my colleague here, and the other colleague he's not here, but so we were running the systems over 10 years or so, and yeah. Then I've been here to a training to do Icinga 2 because our management decided long time no, we stay with Icinga 1, and then 2.5 years ago they decided we go for Icinga 2, and then we have been to a training with Leonard, and then I prepared everything to get all automated from the monitoring to from my GLPI to put all the data out of the CMDP automatically into the monitoring. This works perfectly, and then I moved to the SAP department because before I was in the network department. And then let's say the monitoring in the other areas was a little bit abandoned. So yeah. Now we have still nearly 2,500 systems on the old Icinga 1, and the hardware is quite old, so we need to move forward. Well, the other teams making it classical, so more manually, but I took my scripts and built everything automated. This one. So how I did this, I pimped Icinga with French, was this Zaubersaft? I don't know. So how it works? Beer, yes. So the Fusion inventory runs daily, or how often you want to put it in the cron tab. Then he's sending XML data to the GLPI server. The GLPI server puts this in his database, and then I'm running some scripts to enrich the data. But all the data are in GLPI. And then with some SQL and Python, I create then the configuration. Of course, you can, and I tried it at the beginning. I gambled around a little bit with Director, and then I canceled this. Because I'm able to MySQL, I'm able to Python or whatever, and that was easier than, and more flexible and so on. I will show you. Why so complicated? Well, the solution scales really, so you can do this for 10,000 systems because it's quite fast. The good point is you can't forget anything because the Fusion inventory runs daily, and if somebody adds a new volume or a new drive in a Windows system or starts some new services or whatever, it will pop up in GLPI on the next day, and during the night I'm running a compare script who's doing a theoretical new configuration, then making diff, and if in the diff is something new in the server, I straightforward add this. So if there's a new volume, in. If there is something missing, because diff left and right, if something is missing, then maybe a service is down, so this needs an interaction, then the administrator clicks on rescan and so on. And you can do quite a full automation with that without any interaction. And in GLPI, I gave the system administrator the opportunity to have a GUI to fine-tune something. So because it's up to him, he will get the alert, so I don't need to do his work. It's automated. And you can do this all by hand, as you know, in your monitoring systems, and you write this check and change this check and everything with UI or whatever. So I'm lazy, that's why I'm doing automation. I can set easily downtimes for whole environments because I'm doing in my SAP systems, they're all linked together. Then he's putting a maintenance from Saturday to Sunday, and then all related systems are in maintenance mode. Done. And we have the dependencies transparent. because GLPI knows about it. Sorry about my voice. Yeah, and meanwhile you can concentrate on different things. So this is a fields plugin. With the fields plugin, I create this extra additions to the server, and then it looks in the server in the Icinga section like this. So you have a rescan maintenance for the monitoring on-off. So the administrator can say monitoring off, save, and then the system is gone. You can set alert type, mail, or SMS, or help desk, or whatever. You can specify the load, CPU usage. If you don't want to get any information about this, or even red, you can tell CPU usage 101 and 102, and then it's always green. Same with memory, so it's up to him. Disk usage. How many users are logged in? Normally 99 and 100, but in a DMC system you want to set it to 0. So if there's some user logged in a DMC system, maybe you want to have a pop-up alert, then you can have some extra variables put in there, and then they show up one-to-one in the configuration at the end. Then you select the zone where you put it in, maybe some extra groups, and all the other informations took from the standard things, like the shown you before in the other meeting, disk and whatever processes running and so on. So this is standard functionality you have seen in the other session already. And so I have built me some views with basic information about the system, then detailed computer and sub-instance and so on. So I know the database model quite well, and that's why I created some views. If you are interested, I can send you this. So if one is interested, you find my email address on the first slide from the other show. Just contact me, I will send it over to you. So about network interfaces, processes, TCP scans, and so on. So it's in the database, and out of this, I then create everything. I have some add-ons. For example, I'm scanning the host from the GLPI or from the monitoring system and scanning the host for open TCP ports. Are there some certificates? And then also I add all informations into GLPI, everything in there. And then I click connect this to the host and done. The script is totally simple. That's why with the director it was too complicated for me. The script is starting, looking, do I have some to-dos? If yes, so I have servers, and are there missing files? If a file is missing, I simply create this. Are there redundant files? So if somebody set its maintenance to monitoring to off, then it's deleted. And are there updates? So if somebody setting rescan to yes, then he's running into the loop for a list of servers, 5, 10, 100, whatever. And first he's creating the normal host information, then the disk, network, and process information. And for this I have config files. We come to this in the next. So this is a script with a few parameters. And I'm reading some views, and that's it. The process, I have this config files where I configure with some kind of regex or whatever. So if you find something like squid -f, then create a check squid proxy and set the warning and critical parameter. Then you set, do you want to have a mail or not? And do you want to have to set a variable in the configuration that you have a special, that this system is a squid, or this system is a DB2, or this system is Oracle, or whatever. Yeah. Next is with disk, because sometimes you have some disks that are always full, like a CD-ROM. Of course, you need don't show any CD-ROMs, but it's so if you have some systems named OM1, then you want to have for DB2 different settings than default. You can do it here. Then TCP stuff. This is quasi line by line, so it's just the same thing. You have port. If the port exists in GLPI, just create the check HTTPS 2-3 seconds for warning and critical. Sorry. 1, if there's a certificate, 30 days yellow and 7 days red. And then if it's down, send a short message, S. So, and example, logstash, just without anything. You can have example, sorry, HTTP URLs where a search string is and so on. So it's quite, the script is doing everything because of these parameters. So if you have this port and then you're going through this. I know this part is a little bit boring. But yeah, this is the table, this standard host info, and then the special, so you see then the fields monitoring yes, no, and disk and ports and whatever. So the settings from the administrator. And out of this, I'm generating everything red is coming out of GLPI, and everything the rest is by the script standard. So he's looping to processes, and he's setting then service SMS true, service mail true, and service to help desk false, and so on. So processes, what process he should check for, what ports, everything is generated automatically. At the end, it looks like this. I have a basic check, like getting all the information out of GLPI, so that in the monitoring, first point is who is contact, commands on the system. Remember, this is not a real existing server. Okay, and then he creates a bunch of checks just automatically. Don't do anything. So Ansible creates the system, creates the Fusioninventory entry, creates the Icinga stuff, everything done automatically. And so if you create the virtual machine via Ansible at the end, this check is done. If then somebody installs something on the system and he's adding an SAP and database, next night, it's up. I'm lazy, as I told you already. Here's some example of checks. Of course, disk stuff, and in SAP systems, sometimes critical to have the I/O, so this is done also automatically. CPU and load. Then I have a memory commit. This is a little bit special, because if you overcommit in an SAP system, then it may occur that if you have, for example, a database system and you have not enough memory, then in some circumstances, if there's months closing and he's doing a lot of SQL stuff in the background, then there's not enough memory available, and then he kills, then the kernel kills the process. To avoid this, I'm checking, is there enough memory plus swap available? This is quite an important check to me. Because we had the situation that the kernel killed out some SAP processes and there was no batch running and so on. So this is critical in an SAP environment. Network stuff, of course, or for example, NFS mounts, everything is automated out of GLPI. So if I have a second and third and whatever network interface, done automatically. All the processes you see, all the sub stuff or database or cron or whatever, done automatically. Even he finds the TCP port, so now we have NFS and we have a database and done automatically. Then I have some special checks. I build it in that way that, so here you see where the icons are coming from, and this is shortened, so it's much more complicated, but ignore when you have an HTTP and HA proxy, port 9000. So if this is then ignore, and then make a special check where you check the host with user and password and create a different check that he's checking the HA proxy status. So I don't check the port 9000 because this is senseless, and I do this with other systems as well, because I build automatically all of this, because I have this two information. I know, shit. I should not go there. I have the information, it's an HA proxy, this is true, and I have this 9000 port, and then I'm creating this check automatically. Elastic checks, for example, I see elastic, then I'm simply setting a variable elastic, so because GLPI knows that is, I want to have here in the picture, I'm out of the picture, it's good I go there. I have an elastic, so he's starting automatically with elastic checks. Yeah, and other stuff. This there is a VMware, so I see the system is a VMware in GLPI, and then it's created different way. If you say monitoring yes, then he creates totally different checks. So the standard VMware checks, so all the VMs are running and state and whatever, are they old snapshots and so on. So because GLPI knows it's a VMware, that, if it's a Icinga, that, if it's switch, whatever, do it, other. Database checks. I use the same, I have, but then different table, but the logic is the same, so I have these fields, and then I create this, and the administrator can fine-tune whatever. And then here the views, as you know already, and he's then creating a database object, so it's not really a host, it's a database, and then he's doing some database checks. And if the administrator say, okay, I don't want to have this information, he says off, save, done. And then it disappears. So this is now an example of a DB2 database, but it can be MySQL, MaxDB, HANA, whatever. In GLPI, it's the same. And I see the processes running, and then I'm creating this database object in the background. So I see there's MaxDB running, creating the database object, and then the Icinga settings for that, so basic Icinga settings. And then those checks appear and this object appear, done. SAP standard checks, same, fields plugin, SAP appliance, you go into the, this is a fields plugin again, monitoring, yes, no, and then I want to have login information, database status, or in that case it's not, NQ server, and so these are short dumps. Who has SAP running? Who knows some SAP admins? Okay, not that much. But you can do this with nearly everything. And then I have the systems related to this, and here I'm getting the group informations, because for me this is the SAP application stuff created the group information. If the system is not in here connected to that, then it does not appear. So you have here the group information, but I know an OM1 system belongs to the OM system, and if there's an OM1 host and it's OM1 SAP, then in there. And out of this, then I'm creating checks like batch utilization, database request time, dialog overview time, NQ server information, are there failed IDOCs, and so on and so on. But these are basic checks, because the more interesting checks are these checks they're looking a little bit deeper into the SAP system. Like I have different categories of IDOCs, and we have sometimes said if if an IDOC is coming in and they are not processed, then they are queued, and then something in the business stacks. And before they call us and say, "Oh, we don't getting entries for production, whatever," we see it already here. And if this reach a threshold, then we get information, and also the colleagues from the application part, they getting this. For them, it's much more interesting. Then they see, oh, I have IDOCs type, des ADV. By the way, I myself don't know what it means, but the colleagues from the business, they know, and we monitor this. Okay. Then we have here this, SM12. So, do we have any logs, log situations? So, so we check: do we have some database logs in the background, or SAP logs that two transactions logging each other? Yeah. So in the past we had problems with that, that we were not able to see this, and then it took a long time for them to find out what's the problem, because somebody calling from the business and so on, and you see it with some technical parameters to check, you see this really easily. Also, RFC calls in SAP, so you have queues for outbound, for inbound, and they're synchronous and asynchronous, and we just watch them. Are they in a proper state? And if they reach some level, we get an email or short message. This plugin looks so simple, but what I'm doing here is, because I have a problem, we have some cloud services. You all have cloud services. On this cloud services talking to local services. And the problem is that you have no information about the status, what's going on there. And what I'm doing is, I'm starting a check, and this check is connecting to the cloud system. In this cloud system, I made my own little check program, and this one is connecting from the cloud system back to the SAP Cloud Connector in my local area network, and then this one is connecting to another server, an internal server, and checking the status of this. So I built the whole, what's normally the process. I built this kind of processes, but with a second line next to the standard stuff, and I see, okay, it's working or not. So we had, for example, the problem that in one component, a certificate was off. So this was, and then the cloud connector was not working. But we saw it immediately. And we were able to react because we saw, oh, it's not working anymore. Whereas, oh, this certificate, oh, we need to. By the way, in the old cloud connector, there was no possibility to check the certificate, but with a newer version of the cloud connector, there is now the opportunity to check the certificate, and I'm checking also the certificate, so learned. But you can have some stuff with proxies, so it's it's going out of the data out of my data center, then going using some cloud services somewhere, and doing some unknown stuff in this cloud. I don't know, does it work or not? And then connecting to some other providers and doing something. And this is how I do this, that I simply sending the seconds since 2017 over there, and just comparing the result. So, and this is the complicated cloud connector transfer check. I took kind of the same check, for example, with inbound or outbound connections. We have some tools where we get data transfers from internal guys, from external companies, or we transfer some data to them and so on. And you have so many components in between, you can't be sure is the firewall working or not, but I need the information, is it working or not? That's why every minute I'm sending data in there and measuring, are they there or not? And this is a kind of check, what I'm doing here, because in this complete process chain, I put my own program in this cloud stuff. So I programmed my own in this cloud environment where I can program anything. I programmed a simple check, and then I'm using this to check the complete process. Are these proxies, these firewalls, and so on? Is everything working? It looks simple because it's just showing green, but in the background it's doing a lot. Questions? I'm right in time.
Okay, that was a hard end for me. It surprised me. Okay. Do you have a question? First, we have to thank Karsten, I think.